Welcome back.
To the best podcast. No, just kidding. I'm not gonna do that.
Hey, by the way, we did show the podcast to Abwe.
Oh,
and she approved.
Which
was one of the biggest things
in the Spanish one.
In the Spanish one, right?
Wow.
Right.
Man, but she's so nice. So I mean,
now the real question, guys, is we're gonna show the English podcast to like our American grandma.
Yes.
If
shoot.
if it makes it through, we're good. Like, so we love our grandma. We love our grandma. So she's Scottish.
Yeah.
Now Scottish, mate. That's not Scottish. Give me a second. Okay. Look, back in Scotland, back in the wee town of Langham, our grandmother, she's a sweet little lassie. And I'll say sweet little lassie because she's older now. We call her Maisie. Maisie, she's a tough woman. She's a loving woman, but she pat you real hard in the back.
Oh, yeah.
When she sees you, she's that type of woman.
Yep.
So, man, all that to say, if this podcast makes it through, we're going to make it through. But I hope that you're doing well as you're tuning into this. Yeah. Chris, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited for another pod. Just trying to record as much as possible to bring that content out for you guys.
Yeah.
And Simba's excited to be here too with his toy.
Yes, we can welcome our amazing.
Facing the wrong direction.
He's going ham on his toy, so that's what he's doing. If you can see. We'll see if he eventually rotates or we'll stop because he's trying to swallow it or something.
Yeah. So we'll probably catch something in between.
That's pretty much it. How about you, Josiah? What's going on?
What's new?
We're just gonna fake like we weren't in the same room for the past 6 hours.
Yeah.
And ask how
this is like we just walked into this moment.
Yeah,
and we're
like everything was prepped.
Seen you in forever.
Oh yeah. I love it. Yeah. I'm excited about this topic, man. I'm really excited. Just because I think this topic really is something as young adults, that's something that we are always looking for.
Yeah,
is direction, is vision.
Yep.
That's something we're always looking towards. And I'm excited to hear y'all's thoughts. And Andrew, I know before we started the podcast, you were just talking already. You were already sharing your heart,
bro. I'm
for
a walking
whole hour.
Podcast. I'm a walking.
And then I'm like,
dimes.
why are we not recording right now? So go ahead, Andrew. You started off.
It's always
all
a
that
question.
content is behind the paywall, as they say. I'm just kidding. It's not even.
Subscribe to our Patreon.
Our Patreon.
Not yet.
Man, we need a
Patreon.
Patreon.
Yeah, we don't have one, but we probably need one.
But
Fernando's gonna hook us up with the merch.
Yeah. Set it up for the Patreon. But so to Josh's point, what exactly is the topic today? Today we're going to talk about almost I would say the third biggest question of life. Because there's 4 big questions of life generally everyone asks themselves at some point in their life, whether when they're young or older. Number 1 is kind of where do we come from? It's like this question of origin, like where do we come from? Do we come from apes, or are we related to apes? Did God create us? All that stuff, which that's going to be a whole nother episode. Really, really fun, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Another question is like one of morality. Like, okay, great, we're here. What are we supposed to do? As in what's right, what's wrong. Another one is destiny.
Yeah.
Where do we go after we die? By the way, all these are great podcast topics, but today we're going to talk about meaning, the why question. Like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Exactly. Our purpose, our calling, and finding meaning for our lives. And that's regardless if you're 24, 30, 26 years old, you might be really young and still asking yourself questions like, what am I supposed to do in life? And
yes,
at least for me, like growing up, this would be interesting to kind of find out different perspectives, but I was the kid who was always thinking like, man, when I'm older, I want to be a soldier, a firefighter. And then I merged from like, I transitioned from soldier and firefighter to like, I want to be a cellist.
Oh, yeah.
I rented a cello for 8 months. Fun fact. Did I sound
and
good?
You played for 2 months.
Actually, it was not that bad.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it was
having
not,
how long you had it was pretty impressive.
You actually, I think what happened is you chose your favorite song.
Yes.
You learned how to play it.
Yes.
And you were like, my goal is achieved.
Yeah, and then like the subscription of renting the cello kind of became like the Netflix subscription.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You had, and then I looked at my bank account and I was like, it's time to cancel this.
You were playing it nonstop.
Yeah.
For 2 months, and then you stopped.
I literally forgot and was too lazy to return it.
Yeah,
that cost me something.
Forgot with a massive cello in your bedroom.
Okay, so I was mostly just lazy about it. But the point is, I've always just thought like, who am I gonna be when I grow up?
Sure.
That's always kind of my thought. is that kind of like the same case for you when you were younger? I guess.
Who'd you want to be?
What'd you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't know. Well, I would say I didn't have like a big ambition, but one thing that I really wanted to do was work at an Apple store. That was my dream for the longest time. And I remember,
you guys need to remember, we're from Mexico.
Yeah.
So that like
in
it
Mexico,
might be a little bit different. Like we would visit here and it'd be like, dang, the Apple store is sick.
And Toys R Us.
And Toys R Us.
Okay, but that's when we were a little younger.
Yeah. But I didn't want to work at Toys R Us. I just wanted to buy everything at Toys R Us.
It was amazing.
I remember too, man. Oh, that was good. I remember those times. Well, in Guadalajara, I remember when they opened the first Apple store in Guadalajara.
Yeah.
And it was like the place to be, and I wanted to work there so bad. And I'm like, one day I'll be there, and I'll be helping everybody with their phones and their computers. Because at home, I was always the one like helping into technical perspective. Like, hey, the Wi-Fi went off, the printer doesn't work.
Yeah, it's chaotic every time. Ever since you moved, we have no Wi-Fi. Like literally, we're struggling with Wi-Fi, bro. That's a whole nother story. I'll tell you after.
Yes, I called you.
Everybody, your only answer is like turn it on,
turn it on, and turn it off.
Yeah, turn it off.
I don't know if I disconnected the modem or the little white box we have. I just disconnected everything and reconnected it, bro.
So where you live, our parents live.
Yeah.
The signal sucks. It's really, really bad, and so the only way to make calls is with Wi-Fi call and on the function on the iPhone. And for some reason, what's that, bro?
Wow, that is a very advanced watch you got there.
Hey, this, ladies and gentlemen, we're sponsored by one of the highest classes of watches. Is it Rolex? No, my friend. It's
what is that?
Casio.
Oh, it's a Casio. Yes.
Yep.
This.
Well, how much did that cost, Andrew? That piece of
Casio.
That wearable.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit too much, bro. It's
well,
real.
You don't want to brag.
Nah. When people ask me, who are you wearing, Andrew? Casio. That's who I'm wearing.
I feel like this is what happened. You took revenge on the Apple Watch.
Bro,
that's what happened.
Let's save that story. Let's save the Apple Watch story. So you want that stay.
And so
stay
instead of
tuned
upgrading, you just went like full minimalist.
I was
I'm down.
Buy Apple to that. So you wanted to work in the Apple store. That's kind of what.
So yeah, that was my dream, and
cool.
then I never did, and I don't miss it. But
bro, you wanted to be a cinematographer at one point.
Well, yes, but that came later. Honestly,
yeah, it did.
If I think about it, I think that came when I was maybe 20. That's when I was 21.
Nah, it was a little earlier than that.
We moved here when I was 17, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do besides working at the Apple store.
That's true.
Okay,
that's true.
Cool.
You never had like the usual kid dream of being like a police officer or a doctor, which I never had that. But mine was more like a oh dang,
are you good, bro?
We got traffic going on here.
Okay, he's lying down now.
Wants to chill down there.
That's cool.
I actually always wanted to be a soldier,
That's
but
true.
I didn't want to do it living in Mexico. I didn't want to be in the Mexican Army military. I wanted to be part of the American military. And I could have been, but it's the life never happened in that way. And I feel like God had a different calling, and I'm already touching on it, but we're gonna go into it later. But I feel like God had a different calling. But if there was an alternate timeline or life, that would have been me. I would have loved to go as far as I could go and try and be like a Navy SEAL or something like that.
I know.
I feel like I could do it.
Yeah.
And I say it, and everybody that's actually a Navy SEAL or a Marine would be like, this guy's a joke. You don't know what you're saying. But I feel like I could make it, and I have so much respect for them. But that's kind of like what my dream was.
I find it interesting just how obviously, even though we're brothers raised in the same household, everyone kind of has different dreams. Obviously, everyone's different, and maybe like you're listening And by the way, and you're in the comments, throw in your dreams. What did you want to be? You know what would be funny? Put in the comments if you're a young adult who you wanted to be when you were a kid and what you do now. That'd be funny to find out. It's like, I want to be an astronaut. What do I do? You know?
I didn't do even like a happy medium, like a police officer. I'm like real estate. I'm like nothing to do with like enforcing the law or saving people, but it is helping people in a different way.
But here's the thing: you brought up something because. Y'all thought we were light right now. It's because we're warming you up because we're
buttering you up.
We're about to go like we're not even putting on the oven. This is convection oven. It is hot right away.
Yeah. So let's go. Yeah. Let's drop the convention, bro.
We're at anyways
300 degrees right now.
Yeah, 300 degrees. It's about to get real hot because we're talking about calling, purpose. We hear these words even in church a lot. Like even in the world, everyone's searching for meaning. In church, we tend to use other words for meaning. I mean, sometimes meaning, but we use the word calling a lot. Like, what is the calling for my life? And I get it. We all kind of want to find that. What is the purpose that God has for me? And we use the two words calling and purpose like interchangeably as if they're the same thing. But Chris, you were kind of mentioning before the podcast, and actually you preached about this a little bit.
Man, it's been a few years, but
it's been a few years. But
I know I speak so much that
I know it's one of your world tours. I forgot where you spoke. Was it Amsterdam on this TED Talk?
No,
stage?
That was a different talk. But no, I didn't want to interrupt you there. But basically, I ended up talking. I ended up talking about that. I feel like God put in my heart. It was actually in Spanish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our church is mainly in Spanish, so my preaching ended up being in Spanish. But just kind of talking about the difference between what purpose and calling is, and kind of putting definition to that. And what I found is, and this is what I think it is not necessarily like scientifically what it is or like by definition.
Right.
But I found that purpose is actually the why you're here. Right? So this is the why. So I spoke through it by Matthew 28:19 through 20, and that's Jesus telling us what actually our purpose is. And I'm just going to read it real quick because we talk about the Bible and we read the Bible around here, right? So
better read the Bible.
It says, therefore, this is Jesus speaking. It says, therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this: I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So he gave you a beginning and the end, right? That's our purpose, is to spread his word to the nations and make disciples, right? So, and what is the calling? I think the calling is the how. So the what is purpose, the how,
the why,
is,
you said
the why is purpose, the how is calling. So how are you going to fulfill the why? And it's a catalyst to the why. Yeah. So and that's where we're trying to, I think that the purpose is something that's ingrained in us from birth, is your identity. So it's not really something you have to find.
Okay, so you don't need to find your purpose.
No, really, you find it when you meet Jesus.
Got it.
Right? When you have that encounter with Jesus, you find your purpose. Your purpose is to have other people have the encounter you had, right? Yeah. And then, but how you do it is the calling. Okay. And a lot of people have different callings, meaning a lot of people are involved in a lot of things like the worship leader, or even in the business world, like what I'm doing, or the preacher. And so everybody has different roles as to what their calling looks like, but all of them should aim to the same goal.
Okay.
The same purpose,
which is spreading the gospel.
Got it.
So that was my preaching about.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that because I think, and I want to hear your thoughts on that, Josh, as well, but I think that kind of takes a little bit of weight off our shoulders and really like trying to figure out so much. And because we think calling is such a big word, purpose is such a big word, but biblically speaking, I guess, and people have used this phrase often, but I think it still has a lot of power. It's kind of like our purpose, to your point, is to know God and to make him known.
Exactly.
You know, that phrase I think is well put. And that alone, it's like revelatory. Like if you're listening, if you're sitting down thinking, I don't know what to do with my life, boom, there's your purpose. Like, do you know God? Number one. And if you do, are you making him known? Like, that is huge. And I love that the calling is like the practical of like, how do you do that? How do you make him known? What area of life? And we'll break that down even more and everything. But of where specifically
I don't know.
You make him known.
Josiah,
I keep going, bro. I think for me that is resonating well. Like I'm hearing your thought. Go ahead. Follow.
I did want to touch on that, saying that a lot of people want to skip finding the purpose by wanting to find the calling first. And I think that's the problem. A lot of people are seeking so hard to know how, rather than why.
Yeah.
So, but you can never find that without the why. The why is the purpose. Your calling will be lost and not defined because it's all on the basis of your purpose.
Okay. And so how do people lose their calling? They lose their calling because they lose focus on the purpose?
No, they don't lose their calling. They just can't find it.
Okay.
They can't find
because they haven't defined the purpose.
Exactly. They haven't found definition through the purpose.
Gotcha.
Right? If you can't find your purpose.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Niliana.
Technical difficulty here.
Yep. Sorry, I was so like engaged.
Oh, okay. You're like, it's blocking my my
Go ahead, Andrew, Chris.
Point of view. Yeah, point of view. Anyways, so
he only speaks Spanish.
Yeah, sorry. My brain is just like, but so basically, if you don't realize what your purpose is, it's going to make it very difficult and frustrating.
She's coming, the beast. Sorry. The beast is,
he has woken up. No, he wants to speak. It's going to be really hard to actually find that calling. And you're going to start feeling exhausted and burnt out. You will burn out if your life is based on the calling and not the purpose.
Okay, this is huge. I think that you're talking about burnout, because if we don't prioritize things correctly, because if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, dude, sorry, like I'm trying to move here. Okay, perfect. There you go. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying a lot of people, they flip the two, so they try to make their calling their purpose, meaning their end all. So they're trying to find something like, can I do this for the rest of my life? Am I supposed to do this? They're like, dude, that's such a huge decision. Who the heck knows?
Yeah.
Because your calling, and this is something really important about our callings, is our calling can be seasonal.
Yeah.
That's so true.
It doesn't have to be for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Our purpose is for the rest of our lives, to know God and to make him known.
Yep.
But our callings can be based on different seasons that we do. And I think a lot of us might be stuck because we're trying to find a word from God to define the rest of our lives. As in, like, I see you doing this, and it's like, well, maybe God is asking you to do something in this one season, and trust him for the next season, because when we get those two things flipped and we feel like our calling is our purpose. So in a practical way, maybe you're a realtor like Chris is, or maybe you do work in ministry, you're in nursing, you're a teacher, you're just in high school. You're thinking, what am I supposed to do for the rest of my life? What if God just wants you to be faithful in high school where you're at now?
Yeah.
And when you finish that season, he's going to give you hints. He's going to take you to a new season. But a lot of times we waste the season we're in now because we don't feel it's our purpose in this. And we're waiting for the big word from God. God's like, I got you there for a reason, if that's the case, right? A lot of times we get ourselves into things that God never intended for us to be in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Did that kind of like connect with what you're trying
for me, is everybody's like, well, then how do I find it, right? So then how do I find it? It's just, if you just focus on the purpose, God will show you the calling.
Yes.
Meaning he will show you your giftings. Those will be revealed to you as to how you can implement that, right? So when it says in Proverbs 19:21, it says you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail.
I love that.
So his purpose will prevail in the end.
Yeah.
But it's just, are you gonna just be stuck by doing that and not actually fulfilling the full purpose and the calling?
Yeah.
Because the calling it's what's going to make it exciting, right? The calling is what makes it explode, right? It makes you, and that's where you were saying you can get stuck in that calling, like a worship leader, or like in our world, we live so much where it ends up being so much about us. It's so self-centered. Our calling can become very self-centered.
Yeah.
Whereas the whole purpose of the calling is to point to the purpose.
Yeah.
Which is to God, just
Got
in an
it.
amplified way.
Yeah.
So good.
we have to really look away from what we think our calling should be to being like, if this is a calling I'm going to be doing in this season, I'm going to be okay. That might not be always like this.
Yeah.
And it might be even bigger or better later, but in the end, it's not our call. And we just have to believe that he's going to be with us to the end of the age. So
I love that. Any thoughts with that?
That's so deep, bro.
I
When
know,
you added
it was
to the
deep.
end of the age,
the
I
end
was
of the
like,
age.
dang.
It's like-
and that's his promise.
And it's
That's
true.
what he says.
Amen.
Amen.
Let's
Amen.
wrap. Can we have the pianist come in the back, please?
Yes.
And-
If you want to come forward and be prayed for,
Just wherever you are.
yes,
just come forward.
raise your hands.
So you're saying that, from what I'm understanding, is that your calling can change and should be expected to change, but your purpose is always going to remain the same.
Yes.
I
That's
mean-
the foundation.
I mean,
And this is, and again, what Chris said, this is another way of looking at it.
Yeah,
Like, is
sure.
this the definitions? Maybe not.
No.
But at the
but
same
it,
time,
it
so
made
let's
it
not-
easy for me to.
so let's not get stuck
Yeah.
into like trying to find a calling. Let's be faithful in the calling
let's
that
be
we're
faithful
in
in the
right now.
purpose and in
or
the season that we're
purpose
in now.
In the season that we're in now, and walk in that calling. And I think that's the reason I was just. I'm very intrigued by what you were saying, because it's true. I think a lot of times we confuse both. We confuse purpose and calling, and we can get obsessed about finding our calling, and we stop walking the purpose.
Yes.
Yes,
And so
there it is.
that's, I think we need to always walk the purpose from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And
I'm
God
like
will reveal the calling.
biting my tongue because I just want to like keep going, because it all this is bringing back my preaching as to what it was, because the calling is really amplified through your giftings, right? So the giftings will really shape the calling. And it's like your tool belt. You have a tool belt.
Yep.
And each tool that you have it's a gift that God has given you to be able to fulfill that calling, right? And sometimes we like what we're saying, we get married to the tool belt. We want those tools, or sometimes we want to take other people's tools. We see other people's tool belt and we don't like our own. Right?
So let's define that, because we're if you're just like pausing and you came back from lunch, we're not literally talking about tool belts. We're
No.
talking about your skills and your
Yeah,
giftings.
like
that
your
have.
giftings. You start looking at other people's giftings.
Giftings.
You want their giftings rather than what you have.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen to me. Like I'm a drummer, so I play the drums, and I should be better than I am. But
That's okay.
that's
homie.
besides the point. But there's been times where I've said, man, I would trade my gift of playing drums for being able to sing. Like sing it better than I sing, because I don't sing
Right.
very well. But if I could really
Just
sing,
one of those people.
yes,
That you're just
like where I could just do the riff, just like
Okay,
run,
okay.
do the runs.
where your
Yes.
shower
Well,
voice
yeah.
is your real
I
voice.
think we I mean, I don't know if everybody, but I think everybody here at least would trade anything
Yeah.
to be able to do those
Bruh,
runs.
my god! But that is a bad mentality, and it's
Yeah.
also an ungrateful mentality, because it's me not being grateful for what God gave me and that He's using me with,
Yeah.
and it's looking at other people's gifting and being jealous of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
Subconsciously jealous. In the moment, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I hate my gift. No. But there has been moments where I've said that, and I feel like the Holy Spirit was kind of like, you're diminishing what I gave you.
Wow. Wow.
There's been moments where I've taken out my hammer from my tool belt,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I want the drill, not this hammer.
Right.
And the Holy Spirit's like, I want you to hammer, not drill. He has
Yeah.
the drill. You have the hammer. And I'll stop using the illustration. But it just makes it so much more simple on my
Dude,
mind.
no,
Yeah.
I totally get it, because I think, and hopefully this is making sense, because we're in the Christian realm, we're in church all the time, and a lot of times it can get lost. Like these talks of calling and purpose can get lost in like the ethereal, like just up here somewhere. But what Chris is and we're all sharing is very, very practical. And I think one way to even simplify it even more is that a lot of times we see our calling, like God will, and I heard it was like a TikTok or something of a preacher sharing this, that God will many times show us a dream of what he wants to do in our lives. It's kind of like that big picture that you see yourself. Like I love preaching, so I see myself in the big stage, in front of them, like, oh, if I could preach there and preach the word, that'd be amazing. And a lot of times we make that the calling, as in like the end result, but not the process to that end result.
Yeah.
And what we have to understand is our responsibility as believers is to walk in obedience. If you're walking in obedience, you're walking in your calling.
So true.
Just like that. If you're
that.
walking in obedience, you're walking in your calling.
Yeah.
Don't disregard the process to the big picture, the process to the dream. That's all the part of that calling, that specific gifting that God has put inside of you. Yeah. And when you were talking about how your purpose gives the why to the what, meaning the why to how to the how of how you work out your calling and to fulfill your purpose. I was reminded when Jesus called the disciples. When he called the disciples, there were fishermen, many of them. Mm-hmm. And then Jesus himself said, look, you were fishermen, but now you're going to be fishers
of men.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and maybe I see this application to it, is that he gave them a calling.
Yes.
He used their practical thing of what they were good at, let's just say their gifting, and says, now your big purpose of making God known is going to give meaning to your calling, to your practical thing. Yeah. So you are no longer just a nurse. You're actually a nurse sent by God to that specific place you're in order to make God known.
Yeah.
So you're no longer just a college kid. Not anymore, because you have a purpose. So that gives meaning to your current season. Because maybe the season that you're in feels useless. Like, I'm just stuck. But you have purpose.
Yeah.
Know God and make him known. So all of a sudden, the season you're in has meaning to it now.
Yeah.
That's good.
You're thinking, how in this season, how can I know God more? Because can I tell you, in your seasons of the most trial is sometimes the seasons you can know God the most.
Yeah.
And you can stick to him the most. So maybe, and I feel a word, and I know I'm taking a little long, but I really feel that if you're feeling stuck in the season, if you're feeling disappointed in the season, you're hurting in the season, you've experienced loss, the question is, how can I know God more in this season that I'm currently in?
Yeah.
And God promises that he's close to us, that he's with us in the valley of the shadow and death. We're going to get through it. That's the positive thing. But whatever season that you're in, that purpose gives meaning to wherever you find yourself in.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Earlier, when we were talking before the podcast, you mentioned about bearing responsibility.
Oh, Papa. You ain't even ready, bro.
I'm just ready to talk about that, bro. I'm ready for you to share a little bit more about, because it goes close to what we're talking right now. But I'd love for you to share that thought about bearing responsibility, how that looks like in the sense of walking in your calling, walking your purpose.
Well, actually, to that point, we were talking about how even the Great Commission, what Jesus tells us to do, is it takes us to bear that responsibility of saying, it's up to us. Yeah. That Jesus has placed that purpose on us to make him known. And a lot of times we want to take the easy route in life, and we think that the easy route will also be the most fulfilling. But what kind of history has taught us in a way, and experience teaches us, is actually going through the hardships that gives you the meaning. And you can only go through the hardships when you bear responsibility. And this, I'm not the one really who came up with this. Jordan Peterson has talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this. That one of the ways that you really find meaning is that you first have to overcome the obstacle. That the obstacle is the protector of the meaning. So think about it this way.
Interesting.
It's like in old tales, what protected the gold? The dragon. Mm-hmm. So you have to slay the dragon to get to the gold. So you have to slay the difficulty to get to the gold of meaning. basically is the idea.
Yep.
And it could be, it's tricky because a lot of times we see difficulties, we see hurdles, we see the tough things, and we want to run away from it. But in fact, we need to face it, because in facing it, we actually find meaning in our lives.
Yeah, that's good. 'Cause, a lot of times when we're like, we run into difficulty or, things that we need to hurdle, we decide, oh, this is not from God, right? Or this is not it. Or because a lot of like the Christian lingo, these are closed doors.
Right.
Which it can be. It can be, and that's where we have to be discerning as to what it is, an open door, a closed door, and what we should be walking through and what not. But what you were saying is very interesting, because once we face that, we're taking on the responsibility of deciding not to fight it or to walking away.
Right.
And that responsibility is, you have the responsibility of carrying out that command. Mm-hmm. And Jesus walked that desert,
Yeah.
He walked that desert and he faced difficulty.
The devil himself.
The devil himself, he faced that difficulty.
I never faced the devil, and I still run away, bro.
So there is no excuse as to what difficulty we can face, knowing that he's with us. And that therefore we can see his glory be fulfilled through that, the valley of death, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's taking on that responsibility gives you so much meaning.
Yeah.
Because that essentially opens your eyes to actually seeing, oh my gosh, like, oh, this is what you were talking about all this time is like, whoa, this is what life is actually, not this route. Because the easy route is all flowers and everything, but really is flowers in disguise, or they're like made out of cardboard. It's not real, right? And there's some moments of favor that God can give you where it expedites moments,
right?
But there's other moments where you just got to walk the process, and it's ugly and hard. But you just got to walk through that mud and be like, God, I need to trust you, and walk that purpose or calling that I'm married to for this moment. You know. And for my church people, I know we've been talking about like all kinds, but for my church people that are feeling like burnout or in ministry, or that, why am I not on stage? Why am I the usher? Why am I in kids ministry when I can sing? That I've been on The Voice or whatever, Because I believe there's people like that, and God has put you in a season to be in a place that he needs to have you obscured so you can actually focus on the purpose, because the calling has distracted you.
Yes.
That's
true. Yeah. That's true.
And that you are actually, now the current season of calling is helping, pushing somebody else's calling. And that can be extremely hard when you have the gifting, when you have the ability, you want to push your own calling up, when sometimes God says, break, let's see if you can sacrifice that and help other people get on stage, other people minister, and I'm done. So, okay.
Brother, wait. So you're telling me that my calling for a season could be about serving someone else in their calling?
Yes, absolutely.
My gosh, bro.
And actually, most of the times it is. That's the church.
Yeah, the church is serving
each other. Serving each other. And it's trying to really walk with each other through life. And there's going to be moments. Oh, Simba. There's going to be moments when they're going to be helping you, and there's going to be moments where we're going to be helping them. You got to focus on the moments that you're helping them, and not them helping you.
And something that just came to mind, man, I don't know if this is the same topic.
Yeah. Go for it.
Y'all. So
we got time, baby.
It's like, sometimes it's hard to define the obstacle, the dragon, if it's God's will for us to even fight that dragon.
Right.
True.
And then the other question is the tension between, okay, we're here to help each other.
Right.
There can be a tendency for us when we're in church or even in our jobs that, hey, I helped you. Now it's time that you help me.
I rubbed your back. Now rub my back.
Yeah. Right. And that's common. Like friendships, that's
pro quo.
There you go. So that's expected. In a friendship, that's expected. In a relationship, that's expected. But in calling and in ministry, sometimes we're like, hey, I'm helping your calling. Why aren't you helping mine yet? When is that going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's because the sense, the authority that God has put in the moment.
Yeah.
So if you're there to serve somebody else's calling, most likely it's the authority that's over you.
Sure.
Okay.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Not all the time.
It can be most of the
likely.
times, yes.
Yeah.
And at that point, you can know which dragons you're needing to slay because God told you through the authority he put over you.
Okay.
Now, this is just a thought. Let me see if I can clarify it. But I pictured in my mind somebody who's, if to continue your example of that, hey, I sing, if I'm in the kids ministry and I want to really sing, but I'm here to serve the purpose of the church, or I'm an usher and I'm here to serve the purpose of the church. When am I? They're going to help me.
Right.
I think we're seeing it wrong because in the moment it seems like God defines what dragons you should slay or what responsibility you should bear. Right. Sometimes he defines it through leadership.
Yeah, sure. That's true.
And through authority.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to use leadership because it's so true that sometimes we're saying, God, tell me which responsibility I should bear, or we try to find our own responsibilities to bear that God never told us to.
Yeah.
And sometimes those dragons are too big.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They are.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we get defeated.
Yeah, we try to, what is it like, too big of a bite?
We got to trust that the leadership that we have in our lives, be it our parents, our boss, our church leaders, whatever leadership you have in your life, we have to trust that God has it there as a way of going to the next level of slaying dragons in a safe way.
Yeah,
without you trying, and it's a way for God to define that
without burnout, without just destroying yourself in the process, or other people, or running over other people.
Well, you could just see that in the verse prior to Proverbs 19:21. It says, "Listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end you will be counted among the wise."
Right, you have that in your back pocket or something. Like, were you ready for this? Did you know he was gonna say that?
But sometimes how can we expect to be hearing good counsel or to be disciplined if we are not ready to be under leadership, or we're not in that place?
Man,
we're not in that place,
yes.
And then we're just trying to slay dragons by ourselves,
and
because we're trying to fulfill that calling.
Yes.
And we can be surrounded by leaders, like a boss. You're always going to have a boss. I hate to break it to you. You're always going to have a boss.
Sorry, boss. You ain't always
even if
boss.
You're your own boss,
you still got a boss.
You still got a boss,
aka God.
God
Almighty.
Okay, but I was going to say to the married folk, right? Your wife will be your boss. Mm-hmm. So
we ain't married.
We ain't married. So our bosses are different. But I think that the focus should be that whoever our boss is, that we need to even though our boss could be around us, our leadership can be around us, we cannot be under leadership. We could be slaying our dragons without the direction of God and without the direction of our leaders.
Well, I think that does make sense because, and this all has to do with like how to find your purpose and calling. Like, you don't have to find your calling alone. That's the main thing. It's not your own road of self-discovery. Like, part of it is, but another point, you do need wise counsel that points something and says, you know what, Andrew, I see this in you. I see this gifting in you.
Yes.
And a lot of times we don't interact with enough people to allow for that space.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people can be friends, but a lot of times they are leaders in your life. There are mentors in your life to say, hey, I see this in you. I see God. Even it can be prophetic words that someone gives you. I mean, I know we've gotten prophetic words in our lives, and sometimes they take some time to see it, but then you start to see the fruition of it. And the whole point is, I think culture has lied to us in how to find our purpose, as in like you have to go into maybe like travel Europe in the backpack for like about a year to find yourself. And it's
go backpacking.
It's like, that gives you a fresh perspective.
Mochilazo, papá.
But at the same time, I think we've overcomplicated it.
Mm-hmm.
Is in a bullet point
oversimplified it.
Well, okay, that's true as well. But what I meant by overcomplicated it is it doesn't take necessarily a year to find something for you to take the first step. you know your purpose. Know God and make him known. And if you feel like you're not quite sure about your calling,
I see what you're saying. Then yes,
that's what I meant.
Okay,
is get
it's
yourself,
a lot simpler. Yes,
yeah, get yourself plugged in.
Yeah,
maybe are you bearing responsibility in your life? Have you ran away from actual responsibilities? Like maybe right now you're 18, you're 19. Get a job if you don't have a job. That's going to give you some responsibility in meaning in life. Like, it doesn't have to be all this spiritual stuff. That's part of it. But get yourself a job. Get yourself some responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's, you're going to see meaning there. Just to wrap in some cool ways. So Chris and I have this phrase, which we'll share it with you. All right. Basically, it's the phrase what we've been saying. It's like, what's your dragon to slay? Like, what's your dragon to slay? My dragon to slay was making my bed. Can I be honest?
Bro, you've been slaying that dragon.
Since the beginning of this freaking year, son.
I'm impressed. I've been trying to catch you anytime I visit the house. I've been trying to catch you slacking.
It ain't gonna happen, son. It ain't gonna happen.
I do sometimes see like some shoes on the floor.
Okay,
like
don't expose me like that. Don't expose me like that.
But
bro.
the bed,
no, the bed
clean.
is made. The bed is made because that's my dragon. That dragon ain't got no head, son. The head has decomposed of how long ago I cut it off. Okay, that's a little graphic. But the whole point is, what is your dragon to slay? It could be hitting the gym. It could be prayer time, devotion time, getting plugged in. And maybe it's just for us to take a moment and say, okay, have I been making my calling my purpose? Have I been worrying so much about my personal giftings when it's like, just know God and make him known?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then do I have those people around me that can really call up the calling in my life? And ultimately, like, of course, y'all can share anything before we wrap. It's like, this makes sense, but your calling is something that has to be lived. Like, I encourage you to take the step. Don't hide behind the screen all day. Like, take a step.
Yeah, we've been talking to the divas. Now we're talking to the people that don't want to be on the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
There's the other side. It's like the people that have the giftings, and you know you have some giftings. You need to talk to people and show the giftings that you want to give to the Lord, that you want to serve, right? Yeah. And it might not, and don't feel like, oh, go back to your shell because you get rejected in the moment. Because sometimes it's like, oh, it's not the right time to use that gift.
Yeah.
But now they know about it. Now, and then you could be put in a place where you can either exercise it in a small way, or God uses you immediately.
Yeah.
So, like you said, don't hide behind the screen. Yeah. Don't feel like, oh, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Because our society's all about comparison, right? Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I could say I'm not the best drummer out there, so I shouldn't be drumming, right? Yeah. By any means, I'm not the best drummer. But I do it because I feel like I'm fulfilling something. Yeah. I'm fulfilling a calling through that gifting.
And what's interesting with your drumming, even though you weren't like in that place where like, oh, I'm gonna be the drummer and all that, but you were called out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a time, not in a positive way. In the time of need,
yes,
you were called forward.
Yeah,
to fulfill that gifting.
Yeah, a role that was needed, and I had a gift that I didn't even know I really had.
And so I feel like the people who lean in towards that tendency of like, I don't want to shine. I feel more comfortable here. Is your challenge will be when you are called forward, will you say yes?
Yeah.
And bear that responsibility.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage anyone who has probably been in that place like, man, I'm not that type of person. I don't want to shine. I don't want to. Have you been called out yet or called forward?
Yeah.
And have you said yes in faith?
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a hard challenge.
Man, last nugget, bro. I have to say this.
Okay.
Basically is this.
All right.
If it's hard, it don't mean it ain't God. But if it's easy, it don't mean it is God.
It applies both sides.
Now, how you want to take it, I don't know. That's probably takes us to the next episode of it. But hey, we love all of you. We want to obviously hear from, like, the whole point of Countercurrent Podcast is that we're really a community, a movement of people that live to learn countercurrent, even in the topic of purpose and calling and all this. So we want to hear from you. Put it in the comments. What you feel like God is calling you to and what your purpose is, and definitely whatever other, we have many more topics in mind that we're going to record podcasts on. But if there's some specifically that you're like, man, it'd be really cool if we talk about this or have a conversation about this,
And we could go into so much more into it. So we might touch in some of these things again in future.
Yeah. It's a podcast.
I know it's a podcast where we can just talk. Bro. But it was awesome. And can't wait to keep talking about it because I feel like God has so much to give through this.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the identity of who we are.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about the actual beginning of conception of identity.
Bro. That's a whole nother topic.
We'll just go with that. Yeah. And thank you so much for tuning in, guys. And we'll see you on the next episode.
See you guys later.
The Counting Current Podcast.